All right, what's up, guys? We're back with another episode, I guess, of the podcast that's not a podcast. My name's Max LePage. I'm a physical therapist at Precision Performance Physical Therapy in Philadelphia. I'm here with one of the homies from TriFit Barbell,
One of.
um, Chad, who's been in previous kind of conversations, is not available, so we are stuck with Logan
My
and
God,
Logan
just
only.
stuck with me, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we don't necessarily have a plan, but we'll just make it kind of a casual conversation. Have you been listening to this? This is sort of inspired by. I've been listening to a lot of Stronger by Science, Greg Knuckles and Eric Trexler's conversations. Have you listened to their podcast before?
No, I haven't. I didn't actually know they had just those two had a podcast.
Yeah, so
My
they have.
podcast game has been weak, man. I've been
It's
trying to I've been
yeah,
trying to listen to more.
it's tough, but the Stronger by Science podcast is just them two. And they've been doing it's really good because I think that they actually script it out and
Sure.
jot notes down on like these are the points we want to hit for each of these questions that were sent in.
Right.
Um, but they do like a what they call a fireside chat, which is essentially non fitness content based episodes that they're just kind of like riffing about whatever non-fitness questions people were
Oh,
asking
yeah.
them. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
You should check it out.
I'll definitely give that a listen. I mean, that's what gave you the inspiration to kind of kick this thing off and
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, and then I always would see like comment debates happening under posts on Instagram and
yeah,
Twitter,
absolutely, right.
and I always thought to myself, it would be nice because I always felt like when you have a conversation, you probably agree with anyone who's has an opposing view from you on 95% of the content of the discussion. You're just
Right.
disagreeing on the 5%, right? Like even when you
Yeah.
talk about big political things like socialized healthcare versus not, like we all agree on the very basic foundation of like, hey, we want people to be healthy, we
Hmm.
want people to have access. We're just disagreeing slightly on the exact mechanism by which we think that that's going to happen, but we all
Right.
agree in the sentiment. And I always felt like on social media, you obviously lose all of that foundation of agreement. And so things get um, really heated really quickly because then you're only talking about that 5% because you only have the enough characters to, you know, discuss the things that you disagree about. And I always thought to myself, it would be cool if I could, I don't know, have a platform where if
Yeah,
someone disagrees with
absolutely.
something I say, I'm just like, hey, come on the podcast. Like I would almost want to
Yeah,
make
right.
a season of like commenters, and each episode
Oh,
was a
that's interesting.
commenter who commented something that I disagreed with. And I was like, do you want to discuss this disagreement on my podcast? Let's schedule a time and then have them come on and we'll talk about it. I don't know. I've always thought
Yeah,
that
no,
that
it sounds like a lot of fun, and I find it's so funny, man. And I guess it's in more, but we're just in the world of like fitness and health, and it's in everything, and it's just like social media these days, or the ability for people to comment on things. It's the extremes. It's never like, oh, that was a rational argument, and you changed my mind in the comments. It's always like, I hate you, and I hate everything about you.
yeah.
And it's funny, like I was always joke like you never talk religion, money, politics, and nutrition with people
Yeah.
because like and like you said it that we can all agree that we want to get better, we want to get healthier, we want to move better, we want to lift more weight, and we can all agree that at the end of the day, it's probably just doing the things that help you, whether it be optimal, whether it be wrong, whether it be right. At least you're still making steps towards doing that. But I almost want to change my joke now to, um, you never talk money, religion, politics, or fitness with people because there seems to be such a,
Yeah.
you find that thing that works for you, and then that's the thing. You always got to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess it works, in kind of all things that we talk about. But that'd be interesting to have at least a platform where it's like, hey, if you disagree and you put a bad comment, let's come in here and flesh it out with us.
Yeah, and I imagine most of the people would turn it down or just ghost you and not respond, and it would be like, all right, well,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're not willing
It's
to
a,
come on and talk about it, then I think
it,
that settles things.
that
Yeah,
settles that,
where you're
right?
coming from. But
Got him.
um, yeah, so I don't know. That's always been a thought that's gone through my head. But on another note, um, I had this conversation in the clinic the other day with a student who was coming in to just hang out, observe. And we're talking about high frequency training. So,
Mm,
for the sake of hypertrophy, bodybuilding style training, I just started doing a, kind of like a 4 day per week high frequency. So, training full body, 4 full body day training sessions per week, and running it like a hypertrophy block, right? Like essentially higher volumes, a couple of the main lifts at moderate percentages and hitting like a moderate rep range in the 4 to 6 rep,
sure.
in that rep range. But most of it's just a hypertrophy focus. Um, how do you feel about that?
How do I feel about full body, more frequent?
Yeah, high frequency full body training for
Yeah.
hypertrophy and then for strength.
So, I've only ever really done it for my strength programming myself, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. Um, it feels more intense to me, and I don't know, because like growing up and kind of my beginning years were always like the bro splits, and it
Yeah.
was I had one body part that felt good, but when it was the full body 4 day split, it was the end of that like week or that training week. I felt the fatigue more, and it was nice because I felt like I was warranted my rest days. Um, but I never got that like insane pump or that like, okay, I need to let that body part rest. Um, so I liked it, and I think at the basis of it all, full day more often, bro splits where it's one body part per week, or you split them out more. Again, it's like the foundation is if you're making progress on it and you like it and you enjoy it and you can adhere to it, then it doesn't really matter which one you do. Find the one that you like, and I would probably recommend to try different ways of doing it. So if you've been doing one way forever, change it up and try something else and see how your body responds. So that's kind of like, I guess, my feels on it.
Yeah.
I have been really interested to do like a hypertrophy block full body style, because I wonder if the intent the intensity isn't quite as high versus a strength block. So I wonder if I'll feel kind of more fresh throughout, or if I would feel even more beat up given that maybe the per set volume is a little bit higher. How
Yeah,
long
I
have you been
mean,
doing it now?
well, so I just started
Just started?
this
Okay.
week essentially, yeah. And uh, part of it's one of those things that I think that you probably need to do in concurrently with a very distinct shift in mindset away from what the training session is going to feel like. Because if
Yes.
you go
Yeah.
in with the mindset that like you want a training session that's going to feel like your legs are destroyed at the end, that's not what you're going to get. And if you try to hold on to that while doing a full body program, then you will feel destroyed because you just can't handle that high of volume that would make you feel that way that frequently. Um, and that's where we were kind of having the conversation because I know for myself, in terms of like the enjoyment thing, right? Obviously, any programming variable that doesn't significantly impact the like physiological adaptations that someone would get, we essentially always will refer to if you enjoy it, do it that way. If you don't do it.
Right.
But at the
Right.
same time, I really enjoyed bro splits at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was kind of pushed towards attempting to do like a push pull legs, not just
Mm-hmm.
one body part. And then I enjoyed that. And then I was pushed towards doing upper lower. And I remember that was difficult for me because I was like, I can train lower body obviously on its individual day, but upper body, like I'm only going to hit a little bit of chest and a little bit of
Right,
back and a
right.
little bit of shoulders. And that was very difficult for me. And I did not enjoy that initially. Um, but ultimately, after doing it for a period of time, now I don't really enjoy either a bro split or really a push pull legs quite as much because in
Really?
that sense, I feel like I'm not doing anything. So like all I did today was train chest. You know, I don't feel
Yeah.
like I could have done other stuff, and it seems like I was just kind of beating a dead horse with that.
Yeah.
So even my enjoyment though has shifted. So if I had only stuck to what I enjoyed, then I would have been training suboptimally in a way that maybe I would have enjoyed it forever, but I was missing other kind of experiences with training. So my expectation is that I will enjoy full body training either more or to the same degree as upper lower or other kind of split options, as long as I can do it in a way that I feel good and feel healthy. And I'm being relatively modest with the amount of volume, especially in the initial week that I'm going to try to do per body part per session. um, like for example, this morning I trained I trained full body, obviously, but there was a kind of a chest or a push focus. So each day will still have kind of its focus. But essentially, I went in and I benched 3 sets of 6, and then I did chest flies, 3 sets of 12. And those were like my chest focused things because I did 2 in a row. And then after that, I did like hip thrusts, which was my one lower body thing, and I only did 3 sets. So it was bench, flies, hip thrusts. Then I believe it was like chest supported row, Arnold press, tricep press down, and shrugs.
Yeah.
So it was kind of all over the place, one exercise per body part, essentially, other than chest. And even like Arnold press, I only did 2 sets. Tricep press downs, I only did 2 sets. So I'm keeping it very modest initially. And then if I can bump that up over time, then we'll see how I feel. But I think that that's the important part of transitioning to that program with the
Hmm.
different mindset that like, look, I'm not going to get a back pump today. Like I'm doing 3 sets of pull down.
Right,
I'm not. My
right.
shoulders aren't going to feel huge. I'm doing 2 sets of Arnold press. Um,
Well,
yeah.
one of my mindsets, like when I look at, particularly when I'm programming for athletes, whether I want to go a higher frequency or a less frequency, maybe I'll get your thoughts on this as well. I look at it generally as the training or the lifting. Let's look at like the skill set component of it. Say someone hasn't done bench press very often. Maybe I'll make sure to include a lighter weekly volume, but put it in there more frequently. I like always, it's analogous to like learning an instrument, right? You practice the same instrument more frequently over the week. You tend not to forget what you learned in the prior session. So it's building that skill set more so than, I mean, you can apply it to like a hypertrophy or whatever, but I want to make sure that that person's getting enough practice with that lift weekly, and they're not just visiting it once per week, so that you really have to sit there and constant. Well, what did I learn last week? Was it tuck my shoulders, or
Mm-hmm.
was it what was the bar path on the bench press? So again, if you're doing that 2, 3 times a week, then oh yeah, I did. I remember I did that on Monday. So let me make sure I train this or focus on this. But I think that is kind of like a big component is building the skill set that is either strength or just whatever the movement is.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean like no. So we had another discussion then looking at kind of those super low frequency, just take 1 set of 15 to failure, and you only have to do it once every week
Mm,
or once every 10 days or something, a little crazy. And we were having that conversation as well. And it was like, I just don't think, and that was in the context of using it for collegiate athletes who are
ah,
football players, baseball players, or whatever. And I was like, I don't think most of those athletes are coming in with the required skill base to be able to just come in and squat once a week or once every 10 days and nonetheless just one set every week and build the skill that's going to allow them to really progress that movement and get the neural and hypertrophy adaptations that's going to translate to their sports. I'm like, I don't necessarily think that that's going to be frequent enough. They could at
Right.
least
Right.
increase the per session dosage. But when you look at gym stuff as a skill, not just as a loaded movement that you're trying to create some adaptations with, it's like no other skill in any other sport would you practice twice a week. Like you're never going to practice your golf
Exactly.
swing once a week if you're
Yeah.
really trying to become proficient at it. You would never practice your jump shot or your free throw shot or any other sport skill once or twice a week. You would do it 5 days a week at least,
Exactly.
you know?
And isn't it like Olympic lifters, referring to the clean and jerk, the snatch, don't they? I mean, they have maybe 2 sessions per day where it's just hammering one particular movement, and then they do that 7 days per week. The volume, I guess, well, the per session intensity can be fairly low, but like these are the most skilled lifting movements uh, in fitness, and they need to hit them. I don't even know, as many times as they can per week, again to drill that skill over and over and over again.
Right.
And I always kind of like when I look at frequency and how often should we be hitting the muscle groups. And maybe either you can back me up or correct me here, because I always think of it as like 2 times per week on each muscle group, and then about 10 to 20 working sets for that muscle group as well. Um, and that 10 to 20 can be very dependent upon minimum effective dose, maximum recoverable volume, the athlete's training age, um, and kind of where they best respond. Or at least that's what I remember the literature kind of going for, but I honestly haven't looked into it in a hot minute, so I don't know if you
Yeah.
maybe have some.
Yeah. So that is, here's the problem with a lot of the literature. When you
Well,
look
sure.
at it in general, it is uh, either untrained
Hmm.
individuals or individuals with kind of moderate or recreational kind of intermediate levels of training, just college kids who would like to lift weights and say like, yeah, I'll jump into this study. And so those recommendations appear to be valid and accurate in those contexts. Um, there does seem to be some literature that's come out recently, which I haven't dived into extensively, and it's mostly secondhand that I'm hearing some of this stuff, just because my focus is obviously rehab at this point. But that higher frequencies may benefit more advanced lifters, um, because when you get to a certain point, and even anecdotally, this will probably make sense to you. When you were to hit a squat session, right? Like you and I, when we were training for the 500-pound squats
Hmm.
several summers ago, we would squat, and then maybe if I could convince you to do 3 sets of leg extensions afterwards, we would get those 3 sets in. But we
Yeah.
were doing almost no accessory work after hitting
Correct.
sets of
Yeah.
8 on squats, right? Um, and if we were to attempt to do accessory work after squatting, the quality of that accessory work would have been very, very, very low, because you get to a point where the stimulus that you're capable of creating in a session is so high because of your level of proficiency with the lifts and your adaptations that's allowed you to be very strong, that the disruption you can get from just the first or second exercise can diminish the quality of the remainder of the session significantly for that muscle group and for that movement pattern. Whereas if you were to mix things, then you may be able to squat. And had we been on a full body program, we probably could have gone all out and hit a very high quality set of lat pull downs and a very high quality set of tricep press downs and a very high quality set of, you know, dumbbell shoulder press after that squatting session. So for the more advanced folks who are able to create such a fatiguing stimulus with so minimal exercise variety or so few sets. In that circumstance, high frequency may be better because it allows you to get a better quality of volume for your 10 to 20 sets per week. And if you're at the point where you're training 20 sets per week and you do that in 2 sessions, that's 10 sessions, 10 sets per session for your 2 sessions. Probably the last 6 sets are at a significantly diminished quality compared to the first 4.
Interesting way to
But
think about it.
if
Yeah.
you divided those 20 sets into 5 sessions on a high frequency program, then you could probably recover from yesterday's 4 sets and get a very high quality of 4 sets today, right? Because you
Right.
probably didn't have that much of a stay. It's been a full day since your last 4 sets. Like
Right.
you should be pretty much recovered at this point. So I
Can you
think that's where the
actually
difference is.
can you actually define a little bit of what you mean by high quality?
Yeah, so I guess high quality would be relative to being able to perform the lift with the adequate technique and loads representative of what they would be with zero fatigue being induced. So if I were to go leg press and fresh out of the gate, I could hit 3 sets of 10 with 3 plates on each side. That would be my quote unquote highest quality, right?
Gotcha.
Given my
Yeah.
physical capacity. And so I may be at 80% of that highest quality after hitting the squat session. But tomorrow, hitting those leg presses, I probably could do 3 sets of 10 with 3 plates on each side. And then I would be recovered to that highest qualities, quote unquote.
So once again, it kind of comes all back to, are you able to recover from it? And if yes, can you maximize at least, let's say per day, the most amount of sets and reps under the highest load that you can? And once that starts to diminish, save it for another day. Recover from it and then save it for the next day.
Yeah, but I do think that the are you able to recover from it? Like, I think that someone could be able to recover from the 20 sets split into 2 10-set sessions. But I think
Really?
that,
Because that person's a monster.
well, the reality is that the end of those sets are just going to be a lower quality, right? They won't be performing
Sure.
as well as they would have otherwise performed, and that lack of performance will naturally lower the total stimulus, which
Hmm.
will in turn allow them to recover from that. Like for me, if I'm doing an upper lower program, right? And say I were to do 4 days a week, so I'm doing lower, upper, lower, upper. Um, the amount of workload that my quads are taking on these 2 lower days, certainly I can recover from them if they're appropriately dosed. But if I took that same sets, reps, and exercises and divvied it up within all 4 days rather than just 2 of those 4 days, I can still recover from that. It's the same total volume, but because dispersing it allowed me to perform each exercise with higher quality, higher load, higher intensity, and better technique or whatever, then maybe that will improve my adaptations for the same level on my maximal recoverable volume. Like I still might be at the same general point, but I'm getting better adaptation per unit of volume that I'm performing, right? And maybe it wouldn't be
I
the
get
same
it.
volume because you're able
Right.
to lift slightly more weight, right? So you
Yeah.
actually would be maybe lifting slightly more volume on a high frequency program, which is another one of the potential benefits there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the idea is like maybe you can recover from 10 sets, but maybe those last 5 of the 10 sets are just not having as much of an effect in terms of creating a muscle protein synthesis response because you've already created that response. So it's kind of like I've heard the example of you might like if you were to take that 10 sets, you can shoot someone and kill them with 5 bullets. The next 5 are not going to kill them anymore, right?
He's already dead.
You
Yeah.
could use
Yeah.
those
That's a very good
and kill
point.
a
Yeah.
second person, right? So that's a very
Right.
morbid way to explain it. But the idea is like yeah, maybe those last 5 sets aren't doing as much because of the first five. So if you just did them tomorrow, they would have the effect that the first five had today.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes me think, like you said as well, like more advanced athletes, given a certain intensity, might be better performing more frequently or training more frequently. I have one of our athletes is brought in an absolute beginner, and he's kind of taking him under his wing and showing him what to do. And he was asking me, um, like, oh, how many times per week should you do this? And kind of my thought was like, well, he's an absolute beginner. It really doesn't matter what you do. You're going to see an adaptation to anything, anytime, just adding anything off of zero is more than zero. So,
Right.
um, so is the more frequent thing a little bit better for more advanced athletes, or, I mean, and that's even another thought is like, is there a certain timeline we all go through where we all start with the bro split and then we all move to the upper lower and then we all move to the more frequent? Or, I mean, since it is just a beginner and anything's going to cause an adaptation, does it matter whether they worry about more frequent, less frequent?
Yeah, so for a beginner, I think that it probably matters less, right? Because the in terms of the amount of disruption that they're able to cause in one set or in one exercise with 4 sets is probably not enough to truly disturb them from um, accumulating a sufficient quality in the remainder of the sets. But so I think that in terms of the research there, I don't think that there is any evidence that suggests that a higher frequency would be more effective than a lower frequency volume equated in
Yeah,
untrained or novice individuals. I think that that difference or that advantage is given only in the literature that's looking at um, advanced individuals and comparing high and low frequency. But then you can make the argument like you said, have we all just gone from bro splits to upper lower to maybe full body at some point? And the trained individuals in these studies, their training history is probably upper lower and bro splits. And so now
right.
you are having them do a full body program, and the results that you're seeing that appear to be superior, is it just from the novelty of that stimulus to their body rather than it being anything else? So like if you started someone from a full body program from day one of lifting, 15 years later, does a full body program continue to be more effective for that individual, or would he actually be better off switching to an upper lower with a little bit more kind of per session volume
Hmm.
density? So I don't know, I don't think that the answer is out there for that specifically.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I don't think I would worry about it too much. For the
For a
beginner,
beginner.
I'm way
Yeah.
more worried about doing what you enjoy
Yeah.
and what you enjoy today, not like what you
Right.
possibly could enjoy. Whereas the advanced person who's like, I'm going to be lifting 4 or 5 days regardless of what I do because it's just such a habit at this point. I
Right.
don't think I would enjoy a full body, but I'll try it anyways because it's not going to keep me out of the gym from lack of enjoyment. Then
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you should probably wait, you know?
And that's like kind of, I guess, bringing it full circle again. It's like, remember, you do have to get better at the thing you're doing. So even if you are a beginner and it's like you're just really struggling, like being able to brace your core and um, hinge at the hips on a deadlift or something, maybe it's like even as a beginner, we have some sort of deadlift or deadlift variation more often throughout the week, or whether it be a squat or to again kind of train that skill set. And then on the flip side of it all, it's you're going to get stronger. You're going to get better either way. So there's no, it's like people will say in the comments, right? There's, oh, that's the wrong way to do it. You got to do the bro split, or oh, that's the wrong. And it's like, no, no, you're still going to make progress either way. So it
Yeah,
doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the important thing is again that you stick to it.
yeah, yeah. And the even like you can make the argument for the beginner that high frequency would be better for the goal of improving technique, like you said.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I think
then
so. Yeah,
and it's going to be at least equally as effective as a lower frequency in terms of hypertrophy and strength for them. And then for the advanced, you make the argument based on actual like physiological advantage given the training quality and the amount of volume you're able to accumulate. So then it's like, okay, is high frequency just better all the time? And
I bet
I
that
don't
argument
know.
can be made. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know because what is the rationale behind which we train with body part splits?
yeah,
It's
that's
not
a really
coming
good
from
question. Where did that
logic
come
or
from?
science. I think it's coming from the tradition of bodybuilders destroying a body part and over time recognizing I can only do this once a week. And then over
Hmm.
time people saying like, well, what if we did it twice a week but just a little less each time? And it's like, all right, well that works and it almost seems to work better. And now there's some research to suggest that that works better. And now it's like, okay, well, what about 3 or 4 times a week? People who are untrained probably doesn't matter that much. And now we're like, actually, people who are more advanced, maybe that is better because again, twice a week still is too seldom to be creating this stimulus. So I don't know. Maybe we will get to the point where we're like, upper body is just better
Yeah,
for everyone for almost
or
everyone.
higher frequency
I
is better for everyone,
and
or
I'm
for yeah.
Yeah, I'm not convinced though for strength that it would necessarily be better.
Really?
Um, yes, not that it would be worse, but high frequency in terms of training full body
Oh, I see
five
what you're
days
saying.
a week, where you're not excluding a body part on any of those days. I'm not convinced that because at the point of strength, I think that you're probably only performing very few sets per week anyways.
Hmm.
Like when you look at especially towards the tail end of a powerlifting meet prep, like how many total sets of lower body is a drug-free person performing per week, like of squatting? Maybe 2, 3 sessions a week.
Now I'm thinking like maybe at the end of our blocks we'll have like, if you include the deadlift, maybe like 7 total sets for the
Yeah.
week.
So like you're not going to divide those sets into 5 sessions,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. Yeah.
I think at that point, when at that point, you're looking at, okay, I have relatively few working sets per week. It just makes more sense for me to focus on these on separate days. And you will start to see a crossover between like, if you do squat heavy and then bench, your bench will be affected by your squat. Like it gets to a
Exactly.
point where the
Yeah.
stimulus is so much that other lifts become affected too. And maybe at that point, separating it into more distinct kind of lift categories per week may make more sense. But a lot of people do squat and bench in the same day or deadlift and bench in the same day.
Hmm.
I just don't know if I would consider that a full body high frequency program. I don't know.
Well,
I
so
think of
take a
them
step
differently.
back there. When you say full body, do you mean, because like I'll look at a full body as a push, pull, and a lower. Like if you're hitting those archetypes of movements, then you're pretty much hitting your full body.
Yeah.
Or do you mean like full body, delts, triceps, pecs?
No, not that you have to hit like an isolated movement for
Okay.
each of those things. Like I think I agree with you. Some kind of squat, hinge, push, pull, and I would probably have horizontal push and vertical push.
Yeah, maybe kind of, yeah.
And
Split it down a
yeah,
little bit
you
further.
could maybe even split it into like horizontal pull and vertical pull. But
Sure.
no, I think that squat, hinge, push, pull tends to be the four that I would look at, and maybe even squat and hinge could be together. So,
And so as long
um,
as you're including those per day, you've gotten full
yes,
body.
but typically the powerlifting programs that people will run, it'll be like I squat and bench and go home,
Correct.
or
Yeah.
I deadlift and bench and go home. It's not like I squat, bench, hit some rows, hit some dumbbell shoulder press. So in terms of the fullness of your body, they're performing two big lifts that do hit a lot of muscle groups, but I think that it's done in so few exercises that I don't know. based on exclusively the definition of full body, I suppose that that would fall in line if they just threw in some pull downs. Um, but to that end, like I think that the SRA curve, when you look at like the stimulus, the recovery, and the adaptation for heavily neural based activities like heavy squatting, heavy deadlifting, those SRA curves are just so long, right? Like it
Mm,
may take a week for the recovery and the adaptation to be created to a heavy squat session in terms of your nervous system
interesting. Yeah.
as compared to something like a muscle damage, which the SRA curve length on there, we're looking at 48, 72 hours. So I think that the the nature of the stress for heavy lifts is such that it doesn't preclude you to be able to do it at a higher frequency as compared to a muscle in which the goal is hypertrophy and the SRA curve is relatively short. And then you look at the SRA curve for technique and it's like tiny because I
Right.
can I
Right.
can practice my free throws this morning and again tonight. It's not like the ones this morning affected me tonight. So
Exactly.
I think as you get further away from the technique SRA curve and closer to that neural SRA curve, the extent to which frequency can remain high probably diminishes, right? So from technique, the frequency is super, super high. You probably hit hypertrophy. Maybe you're at a 4 or 5 day per week is an appropriate frequency. And then it probably diminishes over to the neural side of things. And then maybe you're at a, 2 to 3 time a week frequency. So I don't know, but that's partly my bias and partly evidence based. It's a mix, I'd say.
So what? So then, what are you doing for the full body? Give us a little taste of like
Yeah.
what a day looks like. And did you make it yourself, or were you inspired by anybody on this, or?
So I wrote it myself. I was inspired, I suppose, in part by Jeff Nippard's
Yeah,
full body
great
high
program, by the
frequency
way. Yeah,
program. Yeah, so his stuff is awesome, and this is a conversation that he's been talking about pretty regularly. Of which he actually had on that Stronger by Science podcast on an episode
nice.
relatively not long ago. He was a guest on there. So for me, it's a 4 day training split. Um, I will have two of those training days will be lower focused. One will be upper pull focused, and one will be upper push focused. Um, if we look at my lower focused day one, for example, I will leg press or front squat, do dumbbell incline press, hamstring curl, lat pull down, and then an easy bar curl with abs. So that's my lower focus. Two lower body movements, a leg press or front squat, and a hamstring curl.
I think I heard two pulling movements there as well. Why are you saying that it is lower focused?
Well, so it's leg press, incline press. So that's a push, hamstring curl, and then a lat pull down.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
And then it's an easy curl, like a bicep exercise. I wouldn't
Oh, okay,
consider
so
that a
one
pull.
push, one pull, and then two legs,
One push, one pull, two legs, and
and then
then
biceps. Yeah,
a bicep and abs.
yeah, yeah.
Then my next session is upper push. That was the one that I did today. Barbell bench, pec fly, hip thrust, chest supported row, Arnold press, tricep press down, and shrugs.
Okay,
So there I
okay.
have like Arnold press, pec fly, and barbell bench, which are all upper push, but generally more kind of horizontal focused. Um, my lower focused day three will be a sumo deadlift, dips, leg extensions plus calves, cable pullover plus lateral raises, and then face pulls plus hammer curls. So those last three are supersets. But
Okay.
um, yeah, one push, one pull,
Hmm.
two lower, and a couple kind of smaller accessories. And then the upper pull, the last day is an overhead press with a barbell,
Hmm.
upright row with a barbell, seated cable row, lunges and calves, incline dumbbell curl, and hanging leg raises. So
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to attempt to survive.
Yeah.
But again, I'm
Yeah.
starting very, very low in terms of the overall um, per session volume, like sets per session per
Sure.
exercise. But I mean, you look at some of that, like my day three is sumo deadlift, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 8 exercises,
Right.
which is still a large amount of exercises, right? That's a
Yeah,
pretty large
exactly.
variety. Um, and so in terms of the volume there, it's relatively high. I do 8 exercises, 3 sets each. I'm at 24 sets, for the
Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that when you look at it from a global standpoint, if I get to the point where I'm at 20 to 25 sets per session, 4 days a week, and so I'm looking at almost 100 sets per week.
Yeah.
When you
That's
do
pretty huge.
the right, when you do the upper lower split, it's difficult to fit in. Like if you were to do 100 sets per week, say 50 lower extremity, 50 upper extremity, and
Right.
this is very crude math, but
Hmm.
that means you would have to do 25 sets of upper per 2 upper body days.
Jeez. Yeah.
The
That's, yeah.
25 sets are not going to be very high quality,
Yes.
right? The
Yes.
first 10 might be decent, and then the last 15 are not going to be great, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like when I look at this layout and I look at what exercises I'm performing on any given day and the order, I don't feel like I'm going to be compromised in my performance on any real exercise by
It's
the
very true.
previous one. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, I can crush bench, crush
Hmm.
pec flies, and then I can crush hip thrusts because it's my first lower body movement. I can crush rows because I haven't done any back work today. I can crush these Arnold presses. Maybe they'll be a little fatigued, but I've been doing 2 exercises that are unrelated to my, pressing muscles. So by
Hmm.
that time, I'm good. It's been like 25 minutes or whatever. And so I feel like the my ability to go into each exercise and give it a high level of intensity is going to be pretty good as compared to otherwise.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Go
other
ahead.
interesting benefit, from a psychological standpoint, that I think that I will enjoy, and this is something that Eric Trexler pointed out when he was actually talking with Jeff Nippert, and I was like, I think that I would feel the same. Is the idea of if you come into the to a training session and for whatever reason one region of your body is excessively fatigued, whether it's just like random, just not a good day for my legs, or it was like, I went hiking on Saturday, my legs are pretty tired, today's the Sunday session, uh, this is not going to be fun. And you start that training session and you're like, yeah, my legs are not in a good position to work
Right.
today. All
Yeah.
you have to do is 3 sets, and then you get to move on. And the next exercise is like, let's see how chest press goes, because my legs weren't feeling great, but that doesn't mean this won't feel fine. And so it's always like, and then my leg session probably went even better those first 3 sets because I'm like, I just need to grind these 3 sets and just
Exactly.
crush these,
That's
and then I can just forget about legs, move on to my upper body. And so I think on that end too, psychologically, just going into it, I might enjoy that,
no.
especially
I
with
think
these
that that's a
monitors.
really good point. Yeah. I mean, there's always been those days where you get in there and you're just like, that leg movement or whatever you're doing for the day is just crushing your soul. And then you think to yourself, and I've got 15 more
Yeah,
sets I got to go
yeah.
through.
It's like I
And you're
have an
just like,
hour and a half more of this. Like this is going to
exactly.
be a horrible hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that you perform very well with that mindset for the remainder of the hour and
It's
a
very
half.
true. Yeah.
So it's
Uh,
I think that it may help me stay kind of keep that superficial motivation of like actually
yeah,
thinking that, like,
absolutely.
hey, I'm ready to go.
And you're doing this under the context of hypertrophy. The goal is
Yes. And
gain
yeah, because I
muscle.
don't think that this would translate as well to the goal of strength, because I think those SRA curves, that's not a thought, that's an actual thing, but SRA curves are
Yeah.
longer, and I don't think that that's as conducive to high frequency. So I wouldn't if I was trying to maximize my squat, bench, or deadlift, or certain movements, I think you can do it within the confines of a full body, high frequency program. You may just have to really adjust how you're going to do things
Sure.
and squat on 2 of those days, and the other 2 days may be, more posterior chain thing. So you're not actually
Yeah.
going to be um, performing those motions at a high frequency.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this frequency gets me thinking about rest days. Just how do you approach rest days? I mean, I always kind of like, hey, if you need it, take it. Um, do you like to schedule them in?
Now I do because
Yeah,
I
well, you
started
have to,
working.
right? Yeah,
So,
yeah,
dude, my schedule is scary.
yeah.
And
What you've
I,
told me, man, I don't know how you're doing it.
dude, I just had my first day of residency this past Friday.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a little terrified as to
Uh-huh.
what things are going to
You'll
look
make
like.
it, dude. You'll make
My,
it.
let me just, I'll highlight this for you. And so this is why I like rest days. I have Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm in the clinic 8 to 7, which
Right.
is really like 8 to 7:30.
Yeah.
Wednesdays, I am generally off.
Okay.
Thursdays, I work 12 to 6, and Fridays, I'm 8 to 4. On the weeks in which I have residency on Fridays, which is most weeks, my Friday hours get moved to Wednesday. So I don't have Wednesday off. I work Wednesday 8 to 4.
Okay.
And then Friday, I'm in residency 8 to 5. So it's essentially an extra 8 hour day per
Yeah.
week. I'm also teaching on Wednesday afternoons
Yep.
from 2 to 5. So when my residency hours are shifted from, or when I have residency and my hours are shifted from Friday to Wednesday, I work 8 to 4, but now I have to teach at 2. So I
Yeah.
only work till 2, and those 2 hours get moved to Thursday morning. So I'll be working
Uh,
10 to 6 on
yeah.
Thursdays. Then we have mentorship hours as a component of the residency. So the Wednesdays in which I do not have residency on Friday and therefore work 8 to 4 on Friday, but continue to teach on Wednesday from 2 to 5, I'll have mentorship hours essentially from 7 a.m. to 1 on Wednesdays. So every day of the week will be essentially maximally full.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's not home stuff to do for the residents too. Like I have upwards of 300 pages of things to read in the next 2 weeks. So reading
Yeah.
it within all that stuff. So, anyways, that was completely irrelevant and unnecessary.
Well,
But anyway,
so
I need to get it off
rest
my
time.
chest because I'm kind
You
of
get it out,
terrified as
buddy.
to
Come on, man.
what's going on here. Um, so I do schedule rest days,
Okay.
yes, in this context because I'm just like, look, I know I'm going to train these 4 days. I will not have a moment to train outside of these 4 days. And
Right.
so I need to know my schedule well in advance so I can schedule other types of things. So that is what I do on that end. In terms of like clients that I manage, I tend to encourage people to have a set schedule from a training standpoint. Like I want you to know how much volume you plan on doing this week, right? And I like to have folks know how many sessions they're going to get that volume in. So I will encourage people to be like, hey, are you going to train 4 or 5 days a week? If they're like, I can definitely do 4, I may be able to do 5, then I'm like, we will program for 4, and
Same exact way here.
we will add in
Exactly.
a fifth optional, right? And then
Yep.
maybe just kind of accessory stuff. Or if that's 5, and then add in a sixth optional or whatever. I program based on what I know you will 100% be able to do.
Exactly.
But
Important point. Yeah.
then in terms of the actual days of the week that you get those sessions done in, I don't so much care.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're going to train 4 days a week, if you were to train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then take 3 days off in a row, that may be slightly less ideal than if you were to say do those days in a more spread out fashion. Um, but it's not significant enough that I would suggest that you try to reorganize your life around
Right.
getting that
Right.
stuff spread out. Nor would I suggest that you train less and say like
Yeah.
only do 3 days so you can at least have one day in between. I would just
Right.
say, we're going to have to consider this in terms of how we manage the volume and what the expectation is in those 4 sessions, if that's the way you're going to tend to organize it. But in general, I'm like 4 sessions a week, check them off however you need to. And if you have time for that fifth optional, go for it. And then that can be two, right? Someone says like, I can
Yeah.
only train twice. And I'm like, okay,
It's going to be
we're going
hard
to
days.
program, we're going to program two full body days.
Yeah.
And if you can train a third, then there'll be this third optional sitting there for you. But again, it'll just be check those off whenever you can. And so I don't program rest days, I guess, but I program days per week. And I like always having someone with the option of one additional optional day in excess of what that they think that they could probably get in. Because I think that for those who are motivated to do more, I don't want them doing more without me kind of somewhat dictating what that more looks like,
That's a
right? Like
good
I don't want them
point.
to just go
Yeah.
on a run that's like 10 miles when they
Right.
squat tomorrow. Like I want to have some control of even the optional excess, and because that will influence the rest of the days, right? So I
Right.
almost always give people an additional optional day, and so they have
Hmm.
some guidance if they have more time. I don't know, how do you work that rest day thing?
Yeah. So, like, take it when you need. I try and make the program kind of take the rest day if you need it, but it's largely constrained by life factors. I mean, how does your work look?
Yeah.
I think in like a perfect world, let's just take a 4 day split, and we generally suggest this at the gym when people ask when should my rest days be. I can do them whenever. It's like Monday, Tuesday, rest Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, rest of the weekend. If you want an additional day, um, then you can come in and do it through any of those rest days,
Right.
right? Um, I think I like what you're saying there as far as maybe having a little bit of say in what happens on those rest days. I'd say on average, like I generally tell people, like a little bit of conditioning work, lightly loaded stuff, get the heart rate up, just increase the GPP or whatever. Just um, so that's kind of how I look at it. I think, I, and it's totally anecdotally, I think there probably is some benefit to having kind of if it's a weekly split, a mid-split kind of rest day to get yourself ready for maybe that back end, just to have
Mm-hmm.
some rest in there. But like if you've got to do it 4 days in a row, then do it. I mean, it's better to get that total volume in for the week than it is to have missed a day completely. So
Right. Yeah. And
that's the way at least I would look at it. Yeah.
in most circumstances, I think that very, very seldom do people's schedules force them to train 4 days in a row
In a
and
row.
then not
Yeah.
the rest of the week. So
Yeah.
most people are able to mitigate that, especially considering like the weekend is probably a 2 days that they can easily get some training sessions in, and then
Hmm.
they'll find it somewhere else like midweek.
And that's
To do some.
generally like a life event will happen during the week, and they have to just back off their day until a Saturday or Sunday. And it's
Yeah.
like, they'll always like, hey, is that okay? Can I do that? It's like, yes, that's totally fine. Just,
Right.
get in what you can and make sure to kind of maximize that as much as possible. But
Yeah, and I'm the same way on the optional day. It tends to be kind of lower, just get your heart rate up, lower
hmm
load type stuff. And I
hmm
would never tell someone like, if you do train this day, like you have to do this EMOM of kettlebell swings and snatching.
yeah, no,
And I'm like,
absolutely not. Yeah.
you do some type of moderately challenging aerobic thing in the 20 to 30-minute range. I wouldn't exceed that. I wouldn't kill yourself.
Right.
If you're going to do any resistance training, I would maybe do some arms. So I'll give them general guidance. I'm not going to say like, okay, your optional day is this sets, reps,
Right.
these movements, because I
Right.
think that that's just no fun. Like as an optional day, they're just never going to do it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I give them an
Exactly.
optional day that they're just not going to choose.
Well, it's funny because like I think about you saying that, and then I think about our athletes, and it's like most of the time I'm having to tell people to dial it back, calm down, don't do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe I should have some input on the fact that like, hey, we're gonna keep this to 30 minutes or less, and it's gonna be easy. Like,
Right. Yeah. Just give them some nice like guidelines on these are the things that I don't
Yeah.
want you to exceed. Within these confines, do whatever you want.
Exactly.
And yeah, most people enjoy that. Even for myself, like I'm running these 4 days. If it happens, and I don't think that it will on this schedule, that I have a fifth day that I want to do
Hmm.
something. Like I went on a hike this past weekend. That's not a training day. That's just some physical activity, right?
Right. Right.
Um, I think that if I have the opportunity, I would try to do something like that.
Yeah.
That is on the physical side of things, like hike,
Hmm.
ride a bike, or I don't know. I'm in the city, so none of that stuff works very well. But some kind of active recovery, I think on an off day can be beneficial, even to the rest of the training sessions.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, I actually, I think we're gonna need to. I'm gonna get over to the gym here soon.
All right, yeah, I have
Um,
some people waiting, so
okay. I did just want to kind of like wrap up the fact that if you haven't tried a high frequency full body program, give it a shot. It's not going to be better or worse. It might be better. I think we kind of found out there could be an argument to be made that you could really get some good quality sets, and that is something that I haven't thought about in a hot minute. Is that quality versus quantity mindset, and what quality means being getting kind of the most bang for your buck on each set
right.
and rep.
Yeah, even
Um,
quality from a mindset standpoint too, in terms of like
yeah, and
being
then
mentally ready for each
yeah,
exercise.
giving your mind and body a little bit of a break, even per day if you're struggling on one lift. I think that's a really cool point. I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
worth trying out. If anyone is listening and has any questions and needs some guidance, feel free to hit Logan up at the gym. And then
yeah,
obviously me, I have online coaching that I offer and other stuff within the clinic. So
yeah,
get in touch with me too. But where can people find you and your stuff?
yeah, absolutely. Always feel free to email info at TriFit, TRIFIT barbell.com, or reach out to us on all socials at TriFit Barbell.
Cool. And then for me, I'll just point you to maxlepage.dpt on Instagram. And if you wanted to email me, you can email me at max at precisionperformancept.com. Other than that, it's been a great conversation. I look forward to the next one. And
Awesome, man.
I hope everyone out there is doing well.
Guys, take care.